Hi everyone, sorry I haven't posted for a while on YouTube. I've just been feeling quite down, particularly about my art. It's hard not to feel like you're not good enough, or yeah, I guess that sums it up. I feel like I'm not good enough and never will be, so I'm just kind of going through one of those phases where it feels as though everything I do is rubbish. That phase has lasted approximately my whole life. Yeah, I do. I generally am very self-critical, but it's just affecting me a lot at the moment. So I thought that I would just show you what I've been doing. So I have been, although I've not been posting videos, that doesn't mean that I've not been working or doing art. So I've done several pictures in the last week or so. All of these were done in the past week and a half. There's also another drawing in between here, but I'm not going to include that one because it's just not good enough. None of these are good enough, but this is like even worse. So this initial picture, I'm trying to think of what job I can get, basically. I really, really want work, any work at all. I desperately want a job. And I thought, I heard someone say once that create art as though you're already doing that job. That's a good way of trying to get into that market. So I thought that I would do some pictures of a character from some fantasy novels, my concept of her. So this is supposed to be Nynaeve from The Wheel of Time. I would have done something like Game of Thrones, but I find it difficult when you've seen TV shows that depict a certain character. It's really hard to then go and draw that character without just drawing the actor that played them. So I knew that I wasn't going to be influenced by preconceptions about how Nynaeve should look. It's just my personal vision of her. So I started out with this idea here that you can see me working on. She's a magician, I suppose. She has the power to heal people. And she is known for tugging on this long braid that she always has when she's frustrated or thinking hard. So I wanted to show her tugging on her braid. But I quite quickly began to dislike this picture. I felt like it wasn't dynamic enough and it wasn't really showing her performing any magic. She's just sitting there. It could just be anyone, couldn't it? You can't really, there's nothing that says magical about this. I mean, there are certainly lots of things that should point towards Nynaeve. So for example, she's known to wear blue or green, and she has a shawl the shawl is actually meant to yellow fringed, not necessarily a yellow shawl, but for my purposes I just made it a yellow shawl. And she's known to wear these rings and pieces of jewellery that she uses to amplify her magic. But I mean, unless you know the story, you're unlikely to recognise straight off, oh, this is someone with magical powers. So I ended up not really wanting to go forward with the picture. It's still unfinished. When I get to the end of this section, that's how it currently is. I haven't worked on it since I got frustrated. Anyway, I'll stop talking for now and I'll speak again when we get to the next part. Okay, so I have now fallen completely out of love with that other piece, and I wanted to try and work on something more dynamic. You can see a couple of times that I flick back to the previous piece for reference about how I want Nynaeve to look, how I want her face to look, how I want her outfit to look. But other than that, I decided I wanted to show her healing or using her power. And there's a specific part in one of the novels where she heals another mage. It was quite difficult to get the angles that I wanted, so there's a lot of sketching and adjusting and messing around. It looks quite messy at the start. It was really difficult as well to figure out how I wanted the figures to be positioned, and I think I definitely made it hard for myself with regard to the angle of her face. So I was trying to make it look as though there was magic coming from her hands. And in the novels, what she's doing here is untying like a knot or a block in the other woman's head. So I wanted it to look as though that's what she was doing, and I also wanted the threads to be different colours. If you've read the novels, hopefully you'll understand why I was doing this. And then, about this point, I began to get frustrated and felt like it just wasn't coming together the way that I wanted it to. And again, kind of lost faith in it, lost inspiration for it, and gave up. So again, where you see me finish this piece is where it currently stands. I don't consider it finished. It's frustrating me so much. Then here I decided to try just a completely new method. So there's no line picture for this, I just instead scrubbed in roughly where I wanted the different parts to be, where I wanted her face to be, how I wanted her body to look. And then just went for it with the colours. It's not the way that I normally work at all. I think though, because I've been trained in oil painting, it's hard for me not to try to use digital art as though it's traditional art. I tend to do the same thing where I do an initial sketch and then put in the shading and then the colour, and it's not necessarily working so well. I keep forgetting that this is digital and it's a different medium, and there's so many other things that you can do with it. So I watched some videos from different digital artists to see how they work. And then this particular method was pretty much taken from a digital artist called WLOP on YouTube. He is absolutely amazing. If you've not seen his stuff, or her stuff, I'm sorry, I think it doesn't actually, I'm not sure. WLOP, it's hard to know whether that's male or female. So if you've never seen their stuff, it's absolutely amazing. It's beautiful and stunning and so inspirational. So I can't recommend them highly enough. And here I was trying to use some of their methods. Actually, just watching this video, I can kind of see something that I might want to change. I think that my biggest problem with this picture and why I kind of give up on it towards the end is this hand here that I'm currently working on. That would be her left hand. I could not get it right. It was driving me absolutely crazy. I mean, probably because no normal person would have their hand in that position. It's a slightly crazy position. And I couldn't get it to work. Here I tried making it bigger, and then later when I went back to look at it, it wasn't working out at all. Her arm would have to be at such a weird angle. So I changed it again later. I brought down the size of it a little bit to make it look like the hand was further back, but I think what I should have done is brought it in line with the right hand and make the stick be going across almost horizontally. Would that not make more sense? Because then I can make it that the left arm is further back. I think part of the problem is the way that it's kind of curving over. Her arm, would almost have to be like dislocated to be in this position. It's just not right. It's not right. It's so frustrating though. It's really hard to know when you're making up something like this how things might be positioned. And then I gave up on the last piece because the hand was driving me insane. That's not to say that I won't go back to it, but at that point I just couldn't keep looking at it, so I decided to start another piece. And this time it was just an idea that popped into my head for a woman with kind of, you get those fringed lizards. I wanted to draw a woman that had this fringed kind of reptilian thing coming out of her neck. Initially, I did an initial sketch this time. I think I was irritated by the hand in the last picture and felt like if I'd done a sketch, perhaps I would have been able to work out more how I wanted the positioning to be. So I worked on the sketch here for quite a bit longer, which is noticeable in the positioning of the head and the hands. And here you can see that initially I drew the hand the wrong way around, so the thumb is in the wrong position on her arm here. And I was kind of looking at it like, what is wrong with this? Something is wrong. And it's because I was trying to draw using my own hand and I did not have it even remotely in the right position. And then finally I was like, oh wait, the thumb's on the wrong side. So initially I had her with a background with a kind of banqueting table in it, and I wanted there to be like a glass dome perhaps with fireflies inside it or bugs inside it, in order to make the reference that she's going to eat the bug that she's holding. But it wasn't really working, I didn't like it, and I ended up completely changing it at this point to her being in front of like a pond or a lake or something like that. Initially she is holding a dragonfly, and my intent was to set it during the daytime, so it made sense to me that she would be standing next to a pond, on a bridge perhaps or something like that. But later on I decided to set it more at night and change the insect in her hand to a firefly. And that's it. So that is what I've been working on in the past week and a half. The first 3 pictures I just don't feel particularly happy with. I like the Firefly one. I like the colours, particularly the orange and blue. It gives it a Van Gogh feel, I think. It's almost like Starry Night, except with a reptilian. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm still not going to be uploading very frequently. Still feel pretty rubbish about myself. But I hope that everyone is doing well, and thank you for watching, if you did indeed watch. Which you did, I assume. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hear this.